Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the Finance and Administration Committee meeting to order for Tuesday, June the 10th. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call, please? Electronic roll call is open. Councillor Gerard is attending the groundbreaking for the hospital in Uxbridge, and Councillor Yamada is running a bit late. He's informed me he's coming. Mayor Collier, you wish to speak, or you're on the list?
No, Chair, I'm just observing.
Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, no, I'm just observing. That
Okay,
must
great,
accidentally hit
thank
the button.
you. Any disclosures of interest? Being none, we'll move to the agenda. Adoption of the minutes of May 13th. Moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor McDougall. Any corrections? All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. There's no statutory meeting. There's no presentations. We have one delegation by Richard Robertson, who's the Director of Research and Advocacy for B'nai B'rith, and it's in regards to community-based hate reporting program. Richard, you're online. Under our rules, you have 5 minutes. And welcome to the Finance Committee. We're very anxious to hear what you have to say. So please start, Richard. Are we okay? Richard, you just, we can't hear you. You have to request to speak by hitting that button. And there you go. You're on.
Apologies. Good morning, Chair Ash and committee members. My name is Richard Robertson. I'm B'nai B'rith Canada's Director of Research and Advocacy. B'nai B'rith Canada is the country's most senior human rights organization, having been founded in 1875. Our mandate is to combat racism and hatred in all its forms and to champion the rights of the marginalized. We are the voice of Canada's grassroots Jewish community. I'm here this morning to discuss Agenda Item 7.2A, the Community-Based Hate Reporting Program Report. I would like to thank Allison Hector Alexander, Jason Hunt, and their respective departments for their work on this important file and their meaningful engagement with community stakeholders. B'nai B'rith Canada supports Recommendation D that the Council requests the Durham Regional Police Services Board to direct staff to consult religious and cultural groups when developing anti-hate initiatives. Section 5.3 of the report indicates that the DRPS is presently working with the Canadian Race Relations Foundation to develop best practices to enhance its current response to hate activity. It is the submission of B'nai B'rith Canada that the DRPS must augment this by working directly with the religious and cultural groups who represent the victims of hate activity. In specific reference to hate activities targeting the Jewish community, anti-Semitism is nuanced. The form in which it manifests and presents itself are constantly changing and evolving, as is the impact that it has on the local Jewish community. The development of best practices surrounding anti-Semitic hate activity must include consultation with organizations who have a demonstrable expertise in analyzing, assessing, and responding to anti-Semitic hate activity, such as B'nai B'rith Canada. B'nai B'rith Canada is supportive of Recommendation A of the report in the development of a community-based hate reporting program with the following caveat. B'nai B'rith Canada urges the committee to recommend that Victim Services of Durham Region, if selected as the designated community service organization developing and managing the hate reporting portal and database and the awareness building campaign, must engage with religious and other identity-specific community organizations in the development of the reporting program. Religious and other identity-specific community organizations possess the knowledge and expertise to ensure that the hate reporting program meets the needs of their specific communities and is marketed in a way that engages their communities. For example, Jewish community organizations like B'nai B'rith Canada are best suited to consult and advise on the development of a program focused on triaging, recording, reporting, and responding to incidents of anti-Semitic hate activity. Victim Services of Durham Region, at present, lacks the expertise to properly assess and provide support to members of the Jewish community who experience anti-Semitic hate activity. B'nai B'rith Canada, as is noted in Section 5.5 of the report, has been effectively providing such services to the Jewish community in Durham Region for decades. It is our submission that the committee, to ensure the efficacy of the program, must ensure that victim services in the development of the program works in concert with community organizations that possess invaluable experiential knowledge. Further, the inclusion of community organizations in the development of the program will help mitigate the concerns related to underreporting, which are identified in Section 6 of the report. Community organizations are uniquely trusted within their communities. Their involvement in the development of the program will assure the members of the vulnerable communities that the program is capable of meeting their specific needs. Durham Region has the opportunity to be a national leader in the fight against hate by developing the program envisioned in item 7.2a. In collaboration with community organizations representing the region's religious and other identity-specific communities, Durham Region has the capacity to create a program that would set a national standard. It is essential that the region, the Durham Regional Police Services, and Victim Services continue to engage community organizations in the development of the proposed program and in other efforts to combat hate activity. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councillor Leahy.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So through you to the delegate, thank you for coming out this morning. So I'm trying to digest your comments and make sure that I understand what it is that you're asking us to do, because part of the recommendation of this report is to report annually to get that and develop a hate reporting program. So is your concern about how that's worded, that you're just afraid that they're going to develop the program without consulting the different groups? I'm trying to zero in on that concern so we can try and address it.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Our concern is more so that we just want to be assured, as we found the wording of the report in its present state to be a little ambiguous, that there will be a bona fide commitment to include the organizations representing the communities who will be utilizing the reporting service in the development of the training, the protocols related to the program. This is a novel program in the region. If Victim Services is considered to be the best avenue for the facilitation of the program, then we understand that and we support that. We just want to ensure that that Victim Services is mandated to work with all the grassroots community organizations to ensure that the strongest possible program able to effectively combat all the forms of racism and hatred being experienced in the region is developed. And we believe that in order to ensure that, there must be mandated collaboration in the development of the program and its training with members of community organizations responsible for representing the communities who will be using the program.
No, okay, and I can appreciate that. So I guess my next question, before I go to the delegate, is through you, Chair. Are we going to hear from, when the report comes forward, I assume we're going to hear from staff, and I assume we're going to hear from Victim Services as well about what their approach is?
Well, staff, there's no presentation, but staff's here to answer any questions.
Answer any questions. So, okay, so because I see that they're here. So my comment to you, Mr. Robertson, is that the Victim Services is here as well as staff, so we'll ask and address those concerns. If satisfied with those answers, we'll leave it is. If not, we can ask that as they're developing that they reach out to yourself and religious and cultural organizations. Is that really? I think I've captured your main concern with just that approach. Is that fair?
That is correct. We were here today to support the spirit of the program that's being developed. We just want to ensure that the proper collaboration is included in the development of the training, the development of the protocols.
Perfect. Okay, so I think that you have that commitment from us to do that, and we will hear from them shortly. So please stay tuned, and you can watch the discussion as it develops. But I appreciate you coming out this evening and all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Lee, welcome, by the way.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Robertson, for the delegation. Just to confirm, we're also talking about should in a very specific case, an anti-Semitic attack happened in Durham region, you're also hoping that the community organizations get consulted as well. Is that correct? Was that part of your kind of points you were making?
Yes, that Victim Services is going to be the provider of this program, it would
Right.
appear. As Victim Services trains its staff to be able to implement this program, as they develop the protocols for this novel program, we think it's essential that they engage with community organizations representing the various communities who would be utilizing this community-based reporting mechanism. So B'nai B'rith Canada on behalf of the Jewish community, other grassroots Jewish organizations, and other communities representing other marginalized or vulnerable cohorts to ensure that the training in the program that's developed is capable of confronting and meeting the needs of all those experiencing hate in the region.
No, yeah, that's okay. That's what I thought you said. My only concern to that is the sheer number of different community groups, whether it's the Jewish community groups, the Muslim community groups, the Black community groups, like that. We're talking about like a barrage, and that's fine. Like I believe community should be consulted to build this out. But at one point, would you recognize that there might be instances where points of view collide, even within different Jewish groups, for a very specific example, as to how to report or the reporting mechanism. So what would you expect from the region should that occur?
I would submit to you, Councillor, that the region has already engaged with certain community organizations in the development of this report based on our demonstrable expertise and our earned position within our community as the grassroots voice of our community representing the vast majority of Canadian Jews. So I can only speak in this regard to the Jewish community, but B'nai B'rith Canada has for decades been providing services through our own reporting mechanisms on behalf of the community. So when it specifically comes to anti-Semitism, I do believe that there are certain groups who have distinguished themselves as having invaluable experiential knowledge that could assist victim services in the development of this report. And I know anecdotally that there are other groups representing other organizations that have that same expertise.
No, you said it perfectly. I think the region did a pretty good job consulting groups and building the report, and I'm sure the next step would be consulting these same groups when building the actual program. But thank you very much for your expertise. Thank you, Chair, for the comments and questions.
Thank you. I see no other requests to speak, so I want to thank you, Richard, for your attendance today and your continued advocacy on this most important issue. The first item of business is the community-based hate reporting program staff report. So you're welcome to watch and follow along. So we move on to the reports of administration. The first one, as I mentioned, is the community-based hate reporting program. There's a recommendation that has 4 facets, including a funding, as well as a request that the Durham Regional Police have a summary of hate activity on an annual basis. Moved by Councillor Leahy. I need a seconder. By Chair Henry. Questions? Councillor Leahy.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate that. So I guess the first question coming from the delegate through you to staff. So now they're concerned that as we develop the item A, that council approved the development of community-based hate reporting program, that there's not going to be consultation with the different groups. Can we speak to that?
CO?
Yes, we would absolutely continue to consult with the groups that were involved in the creation of this report and broader than that if necessary, but I'll turn it over to Alice and Hector Alexander, who may want to add.
Thank you, through the chair. In section 8.10 of the report, we do note that all the organizations listed above will be invited to collaborate on the program development to ensure the needs of their respective communities are being met. In addition, we will develop a robust information and referral aspect to the program so that folks who are reporting will be referred to culturally and population-specific supports within the communities.
Okay, so again, so it sounds to me like we will continue to reach out to those different organizations, and if at any time they, if Mr. Robertson from B'nai B'rith or someone from CIJA or another, if they reached out, I'm assuming we would have no issue having conversations and collaborations with them. Like is that fair?
Yes, that is, oh, sorry. That is fair. In addition to that, we also will engage for training purposes, as was mentioned in the delegation, for culturally specific groups.
Yeah, which is excellent. So it sounds like from the direction of the report, so we will be going like so Victim Services is going to lead that development, or just lead the intake and the guiding of all the complaints as they come in.
No, we will work together through the chair with Victim Services in program development, as well as engage the list of organizations listed in 8.9.
Okay. Yeah. No. And that part is great. So I hope that addressed the concern from the delegate, that we definitely will include that, and they're welcome to reach out anytime, which is great to hear. I guess in the spirit of the only delegate that was here, if reading the report correctly, it says that basically 70% of the hate crimes have been targeted just at the Jewish community. Is that from our own data, or is that just a provincial number?
That through the chair, it's through Statistics Canada data. That we're seeing this, but we also know, and we noted in the report, that we know that these numbers, it's not a true reflection of the actual incidents of hate being experienced in our communities. It is underreported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that means like the bulk of it being, anti-Semitism and then Islamophobia. That's 86% of the information from Statistic Canada you mentioned in the report. So I guess those would be the primary areas where we're seeing it, and the outreach for those specific cultural groups. So I appreciate that. And then from my next question is around basically implementation. So we're looking, this would be time for September this year to September next year. So that's when it would be fully implemented in the second phase, or just for timing, just so that I can be able to say to someone when it's completely implemented?
Ideally, we want to see full implementation by September 26th. So we will begin the work in program development, as well as looking at the development of the portal itself to receive those complaints, as well as promotion of the program and training for staff.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I really applaud and appreciate staff, yourself, Victim Services, the DRPS for taking this seriously and putting all this effort into it. Like, the incidents continue. I know it's not just in Whitby, but that's where I live, and as you all know, we had all the stuff spray painted on the DRT property just in downtown Whitby, specifically targeted at the Muslim Welfare Center, which is there just to help abused women and families. And we saw, the chemically burned swastika in Whitby. We've seen it at our library, where it is pervasive, it is persistent, it is not going away, and we need to continue to show this leadership that you and your team are doing, that we will take a leadership position on fighting hate and in our community and not tolerate it. So I can't thank you enough. I appreciate the outreach with all the organizations, all their feedback. This is it's so important, and it's just so hard for our kids when they see that. So I really appreciate it, and I thank you so much. I look forward to this implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Welcome, Chief. I see you're on the screen as well. You're in two places at once. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm having a problem kind of figuring out, why would someone go through this? So I've experienced what I perceive to be a hate crime, let's say anti-Asian, that's very appropriate for me in this case. Why would I not contact Durham Region Police, or what is the expectation from the other organizations, comparable municipalities? Like, why would someone use this method as opposed to DRPS, or is it the expectation they would use both methods?
And so we would encourage them to use both methods. We don't want this to be an either or. It's a complementary support and a complementary resource for a community. We know that historically, not every community group feels comfortable reporting to police. There are a number of perceptions that are out there in our communities as to why folks do not report. We also know that there are concerns around understanding the difference between what is a hate crime, what is a hate-motivated activity, what is hate activity. So this is an opportunity opportunity for education and raising awareness for our community, but also an opportunity where community can connect with a very long-standing, well-respected, non-secular organization that is providing support in a very trauma-informed way, and who can be connected to the appropriate culturally specific supports within community. They will receive, crisis support, counseling support, wraparound supports, connections to other resources, where if you have someone where, a swastika is painted on their windows, that they'll get supports to have that clean. They may need, their locks changed. So it's a complementary, it's not an either or. And I think it is important, given the relationship and partnerships that we have with DRPS and victim services, the proximity, that there is the opportunity for us to continue to work together. We will, the idea is that we do need consent for someone, before sharing with DRPS, but we want to really explore within the program development phase of how best we'll do that. So it's not an either or, it's a complementary community-based resource that we will use for awareness raising and education as well.
My biggest concern is obviously bad faith actors. We currently have an individual within the Durham region, we actually don't even know where they're from, but they're sending emails to the Durham region diversity groups claiming to be a Muslim and then saying horrible things about Muslims. How are we vetting against bad faith actors? Like, will there be a verification process to ensure we are not misreporting or this system's not being abused in any way?
So through the chair, this will be part of the conversation in program development. We're working closely with the other established community-based programs as well to learn from them and understand leading practice. We're anticipating that we will use a combination of technology as well as human review. And again, as I said, the partnerships are critical in this, so that we're talking to each other in this process, so that we understand what different groups or DEI offices are receiving, sort of what you noted in that example. But it will be a combination of technology, partnerships, and human review, and really cemented within the program development phase, so that we can navigate, these bad actors.
And since, we're in finance, the ask right now is $50,000. Do we believe that $50,000 plus all the grants available is truly enough to build out a system that can properly vet these kind of things? Do we have enough human actual resources to apply to this?
Yes. At this stage, I say yes at this stage, so that we can figure it out through the pilot and through the expertise that are already available through victim services. We believe that we can go through this pilot with this amount. We may need to come back after the pilot once we've done the evaluation to ask our council around next steps and securing other additional financial resources. But for now, we are able to navigate, as I said, looking at what is already established for victim services, as well as the grant that we're working with, that we're able to do it.
Okay, appreciate the answers to all the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Councillor Crawford, my apologies, you should have been first on that list as a member.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, he's a former member,
Yeah,
so I gave him
it's irrelevant.
the reverence of being a former member.
Former members, yeah. So my question is somewhat tied to what Regional Councillor Lee had mentioned, is that anytime that I understand Victim Services has stepped forward and said their interest in being a service provider for this, but any time I've ever spoken with Victim Services, they're very stretched as far as staffing, and the need continues to grow for their services. So my concern is that, like, they are nonprofit, so we need to support in some way. I see in phase 2, the components are staff resources at Victim Services. So I'm assuming that would be, you would be figuring out, I don't want to put you on the spot at all. And, I don't know if you want to speak or feel comfortable in speaking, but you would be establishing through the pilot what kind of staffing you would require, right? Because I don't believe you can absorb this into your current 5 people or whatever it is you have at this point, right?
Turn the mic on. One sec for the mic. Okay,
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Krista McNeil, and I'm the Executive Director for Victim Services. Thank you for your question and much appreciated, the recognition regarding the capacity issues. So essentially, we are already responding to these incidents. So our capacity is always strained as a nonprofit. We do the best we can with what we have, but we are already responding to hate crimes. We have been for many years. We are the only avenue to access the Victim Quick Response Program for the province, which is the funding that is available for things like graffiti removal and counseling as a result of victimization. So essentially, with the pilot, we anticipate that there won't be a massive or drastic impact because we are already doing the work. It's just finding better ways of doing that work and establishing stronger partnerships within the community. And then from the pilot, if we do see a drastic increase in reporting, then of course we'll assess the need for funding ongoing to address the staffing issues. I do also, if I could, while I'm here, just speak very briefly to my friend's comments who opened. I completely echo his concern on the need for collaboration. Our entire model at Victim Services is actually foundational on collaboration with community partners and key stakeholders in any project that we operate. It's why more than half of our staff team are survivors of victimization of crime. It's also why we have an internal survivor advisory panel and youth advisory council. So we do have really strong partnerships with diverse groups existing already, and we are always very, very open to building on that.
So yeah, in my humble opinion, there's no better organization that could look after this, and knowing that you're already doing it is amazing. So I guess then the staff in phase 2 would be directed at, it would be for Victim Services if it's identified here, or how does, like, where does that, do we even know? I guess maybe I'm asking too prematurely on where that would land.
Yes, so it's all victim services.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's great then. Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this report. It's very well written and very comprehensive in my mind from what we asked for previously. Just to follow up on some other questions that a fellow councillor had asked in terms of, this system in terms of having, through the DRPS and then through this other reporting, avenue as well. I'm assuming that when I look at the definition of a hate-related crime, there's many of this that falls short of being hate-related crimes, such that DRPS may look at it and say we don't really need to follow up on this from a police avenue, but perhaps from our avenue in terms of this reporting. I'm assuming that's where this would be captured through, Mr. Chair.
Yes, so through the chair, and that was one of the statements that we heard from Mr. Richardson back in February, that there is a significant number of hate-motivated activity that is awful but lawful. And so it goes back to the underreporting, or it goes back to the stats as to whether it is truly reflective of the experiences of community members who experience hate. Or hate activity. And so it doesn't, this is where we share the different definitions, because it's important that we see that, and we also understand why the numbers are not necessarily a true reflection, right? Because it may not necessarily fall within the category of a hate crime, and it may be awful but lawful. And so we know that the numbers are not a true reflection. And so this community-based reporting program will capture, ideally, once we do our promotion and awareness raising and marketing, that it will capture the awful but lawful incidents as well.
Thank you. And I'm just thinking in terms of an industrial sort of relation where it's important to report your near misses, because your near misses are a miss, but by tracking your near misses, you actually can capture a potential incident in the future. So I pulled up the definitions. By tracking your hate-motivated incidents and your hate activities, you're potentially mitigating the option or the probability of a hate-motivated crime. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. So through the chair, and it will also give us an opportunity to pay attention to trends or patterns that we may be seeing. And this is where the partnership and collaboration comes into play as well, so that we can, with consent, share information and have these conversations with our DRPS partners so that we can explore what resources or supports or action may be required if we're seeing particular trends or patterns.
Very
So
good.
yes.
And I really like the idea that the expenditure is partnered with other funding as well. So it marries us together and moves us further down the road. So thank you very much for that.
Yes.
Counselor Wu.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Chair. My question on this, and I think it goes back to the funding, and I see in the report, if we're looking at, now I lost the report, sorry. Here we are. Now, Allison, to Allison, total project cost 89,000. Staff will be leveraging the 39,000 in federal funding. That's for phase one. And I'm assuming that money comes from, it was in line item 5.7, Canadian Race Relations Foundational National Anti-Racism Fund, Together Against Hate. And then for phase two, 50,000. When I look at the chart, 7.5, and I'm looking at the dollar amounts. Is that enough money, even at 39,000, to get us off the ground?
So through the chair, going back to what Executive Director Krista McNeil shared, there are already existing resources to be able to start this work. And just to clarify to Councillor Rowe, the 39,000 is through grant funding that we received from Public Safety Canada through our CSWB, the Building Safer Communities Fund. So it is distinct from the grant that we received from the Canada Race Relations Foundation. This work will be done. This will be where the bulk of our awareness and education work will happen, and as will culminate with a conference in November. So those are two separate pieces. So the 39,000 will come from the Building Safer Communities funds. That speaks to, again, violence, community violence prevention initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a follow-up to that, in 5.7, what is the amount of the grant that we did receive from the Canadian Race Relations Foundation?
50,000.
50,000?
Yes.
Okay. But that's not to be confused with the 50,000 that is coming from council. Is that correct?
Yes, separate. We're asking for this additional 50,000 to support the portal development.
Okay. Now, you made reference to 8.10 and region responded to questions corporate. Now, it does say there that the project was endorsed by all with the exception of B'nai B'rith. Now, I think, and I'm hoping some of that issues may have been clarified with Mr. Robinson's presentation today. One of the issues that he did say was, and this is under 5.3 Durham Regional Police, collaborating with the Canadian Race Relations Foundation to incorporate best practices. And I'm assuming through that he was hoping that DRPS would collaborate with all the stakeholders. Am I correct in saying that, or did I read that correctly?
Yes, correct. So at the time of the report submission, we had not have the full endorsement of B'nai B'rith. We've moved beyond that, and we're here where they are supporting the program in principle. And then the other part to this, yes, one of the input or feedback that we received from B'nai B'rith was that we expand where the request to expand through DRPS from the Canadian Race Relations Foundation to include all religious and cultural organizations as well, noted in the report, so that they are part of the initiatives, all the anti-hate initiatives that DRPS will deliver.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have any other requests, so there'll be no further debate. The motion is duly moved and second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. The next item on our agenda is a report from the Commissioner about administrative penalty system for contraventions detecting using camera systems. From Jason? Oh, CIO? Can I get, yes. Can I get a motion moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor McDougall? Commissioner of Legal, I haven't called you that yet. Do you wish to offer any comments in regards to this report?
I'm just going to say that it addresses a couple of acute issues, which is the shortage of judicial resources in the courts, which we don't control. Hopefully that's a short-term issue, but it does address that. It also facilitates natural growth of the region's Vision Zero program, which is obviously outside of this, but it all does have to go through the courts. And so it will facilitate that by allowing us to have more control over the resources that support that adjudication, which, as you read in the report, are those hearing officers.
Just a follow-up question. Those municipalities that have speed cameras at the lower end, will they be able to partner or purchase the service, or in some way streamline their process?
Yeah, certainly that's our hope for any of the local tiers that would like to take advantage of this program, if it makes financial sense for them. There may be economies of scale here at the region that maybe don't exist at the local tier. So we would be happy to have them join the program, although I should point out that my colleagues in finance have confirmed that this is a very conservative estimate in terms of revenue. So we're not counting on those revenues. This is business cases purely based on regional charges and regional revenues.
Right. Councillor Leahy.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. So great to see this here. So with this, with the administrative penalty system for the cameras and the speed tickets and all those different things, are we looking at adjusting or changing those fines in a way? Like, do we have more flexibility with this, like we do locally when we moved to an administrative penalty system, or is everything locked down and this is just? Yeah, that's my first question.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is an independent system, and I think independent in the sort of judicial sense. So the decision about fines, those are all things that are part of the Vision Zero program. So this will not facilitate that or take away from it. To the extent those decisions are available to Vision Zero, they can make choices about fines. There are choices being made about at what level, if it's 20 over, 10 over, like all those choices that exist within the Vision Zero will still remain. This is really just about providing resources. One of the constraints, I will say, with the Vision Zero program has been the lack of judicial resources, and that applies equally to the Vision Zero charges like red light cameras and automated speed, but it also applies to the police-laid charges as well. The traditional charges, they are all constrained by our lack of judicial resources through the POA courts. This will pull, obviously we can't deal with police-laid charges here, but we can certainly pull out all of those camera-based charges, which will create room in the courts. So it should give people more choice at the charging end to implement their programs as they see fit.
Yeah, so does that mean that we as the region going to our own system through APS versus the courts, is that what gives us the ability to raise the fines, or are we restricted in our ability to do that? Through the chair.
So specifics on fines, I can pass to my colleagues here. So we've got Wendy Law and Vera Oliveira who'll know the details of that. But I suspect there are legislative constraints on the program related to fines, but perhaps if I can, I see that Wendy's nodding. I'll pass it to Wendy Law if I can.
Over here.
Through Mr. Chair to Councillor. Yes, the fines are fixed under regulation under the Highway Traffic Act. So it's a transition from the court system to the administrative monetary penalty system, but the fines remain the same based on legislation.
Yeah, and that was the crux of my questions. Because I know it's a different system, but municipally, once we moved to the APS system on the lower tier, we were able to crank up a lot of our fines and add escalation and make all kinds of changes to increase enforcement. So I guess we don't have that same flexibility on this here, which is my question. Second question is around, so looking at, again, I also think this is a conservative estimate for potential fines. So in the business case, so we were just taking the conservative estimates of the revenue, the ticket revenue, and personnel costs, so that we were going to add in, is, if my count is right, about 7 staff, and that will be covered by the fine, so it'll be revenue neutral to the tax base.
That's correct, and I think the other thing to point out here is this is our planned program. The nice thing about it is that it's scalable, right? So we can see the fines coming in, and we can assign staff more or less as required. We didn't have that ability with, we have the justices of the peace that are allocated to us by the province. We can't increase that no matter how much we might like to. So, but yes, that's correct. The staff identified in the report will be covered by the anticipated revenues, and we can adjust as the revenues adjust.
Perfect. So then it can be perfectly tax supported revenue zero, which is great. And then the other piece is, in the past, when we've had to see like a lot of tickets thrown out because they didn't get through the judicial process in time, we won't have that issue moving forward when we go to the system.
Strategic withdrawals?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the intention. It should, well, certainly with respect to camera-based charges, we will have the ability to meet the needs of Vision Zero. Absolutely. And then with respect to what's remaining in POA court, those police-based charges, which can't be dealt with here, it should provide some additional capacity to those courts. We still need our 4 justices of the peace, if anyone is listening.
We still need more.
Yes, we're about 2.5. And if you look at the court volumes, we are at or above our all-time high when we had 4 justices of the peace, 4 courtrooms running. So we still need to get back there. Even with this program, but this program provides us with a lot of flexibility. And for Vision Zero, it is a 100% answer to that program.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And then, is there, with the administrative penalty system in other jurisdictions or other programs, like there isn't really an appeal process? Is that the same here? Once you get it, that's the fine. That's it. You just owe it.
Yes, there is a 2-step, as you saw in the report. There's a screening officer, then there's a hearing officer. So you can get a decision from a screening officer. You can then appeal that to the hearing officer and get a decision. But we should all remember, these are camera-based charges. So you were actually speeding. You did actually go through the red light. So if there are, there's always issues, and if there are, serious issues, the hearing officer has the ability to look at that and make a decision. So it is appealable within the system, yes.
But only to the next level with our own staff. There's nothing above that, I guess, if I zero into my question more succinctly.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. So no, that's helpful. Although every time someone complains to me about their ticket, it was always their spouse that was driving. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a problem with the 400,000 unbudgeted. The reason why I have that problem is that the lower tiers were contacted in 2023 that the region was going to be putting this program in place. And my question would be, why was it not included in either the 2023-24 budget, or now why are we doing it so close to the 2020, what year are we in, 2025 budget?
This 2025 is the current budget.
Right, so why wasn't it put in previous budgets if we already knew that we were going to do this?
Commissioner?
So through the chair, perhaps I'll start and the Director of Legal Services can comment.
Commissioner of Legal Services.
That's right. So from a regional budget perspective, we hadn't built it in because we needed to do the full business case development to determine whether it would be ultimately net zero. And because we did 2 budgets last year, the capacity to do some of these extra business cases to make sure that, that it would be net zero wasn't there. So now we want to build it into the 2026 budget, but we do need, if we're going to get it actually launched, they need the software to get started and the system to get in place. So that's why this 400 is being approved, so that they can, otherwise the start date would be even later. So we wanted to make sure that we had the business case to prove that it's valuable to proceed, and now we need to get some advanced funding in order to get it into place within a reasonable time frame in 2026.
So the other municipalities are contracting these functions out, screening, hearings, case management. Why isn't the region decided to do that? It would be much cheaper.
Mr. Hunt?
I'm not going to speak to the decisions of the other municipalities. But I will say at the region, there is sufficient scale in terms of the number of charges to provide positions for full-time positions. So if there were not sufficient scale, it would not make sense to have a full-time hearing officer to sit, here 5 days a week if they only really, had enough charges for 1 day a week. But we're well over that in terms of our projections. So this is the most cost-effective method to do that. We are aware of contracted services out there. I mean, local tier prosecutions is a good example of a service that was often contracted by local tiers, but was much more expensive. When you translate that over to the region on a dollar-for-dollar basis, then providing a full-time staff and full-time operation. So this is something we do have some experience in. We're aware of what's available in terms of contracted services, and this is definitely the most cost-effective way to deliver this service for taxpayers.
So the numbers that you're projecting for revenue, does that include Pickering and Ajax?
No.
How did you separate that? Because for years I've been saying, why are we not getting any money for our tickets? How did you separate that suddenly?
Well, the exercise of how I might defer to my colleagues in finance who did who provided the financial projections. However, and I'm recalling the conversation about trying to separate out charges, and that might be something perhaps I've got to get back to you on.
Don't get me wrong.
Because I know we had a long discussion about how we could divide out charges, and there are some challenges with how we do that.
Yeah.
On the revenue side, less so. It is easier to separate charges on the revenue side. When you start to try to apply costs against that, it becomes more difficult. So that may have been the conversation, but that might be something I need to get back to you on. But with respect to how it was done for the business case, I can defer that to finance.
So actually, if I may, I'll answer part of the first question. So the existing charges, and the reason why through the area treasurers we have addressed the revenue stream for Ajax and Pickering through the entire POA system, a big chunk of it had to do with the fact that the cost can't be allocated. But also these charges, the tickets all come through, and I'll make sure I'm using the right phrasing, the ICON system, and it is from 1970 whatever. So it does not, we can't just run a report that says how many tickets and what were the total costs for Ajax. It doesn't have that flexibility. Under a new system, by spending the money to set it up, we'll have a much better tracking mechanism so that if some of the locals wanted to participate, we have ways and scenarios of how to come up with agreements to do that. But under the umbrella of the entirety of the POA system itself, for a lot of the reasons that Jason has mentioned, has been a net loss for a while. In order to keep the locals, Ajax and Pickering, whole with respect to the automated cameras, at the very least, we're picking up the out-of-pocket costs and building and covering that through the POA system.
So the cost of the cameras?
So the cost of the cameras and the
about
cost
$200,000.
And the cost of all of the process, and all the treasurers are aware, because then we have allocated any net POA revenue gets allocated out That means that the other locals, depending on whether there's really is a net revenue or expense for Pickering and Ajax currently, it's either being subsidized or being shared across all of the locals, because that's how the POA side is structured. Switching to this means it's much cleaner, and we have the ability to actually figure out the dynamics behind the scenes, and that's why I think the opportunity is greater for locals that may want to participate in order to do that, because moving from a system that essentially was designed in the 70s to something current is an entirely different scenario.
So has the region considered putting up a joint processing center? Because currently, under Toronto, we are limited to how many tickets that we can actually put out. I know Ajax is looking at moving to a different joint processing service. I would think that would be a better bang for your buck, because we're only allowed to give out so many tickets per camera. So I'm just wondering, has that ever been considered?
Commissioner?
Absolutely, yeah, that's step two, is having a joint processing center that provides capacity, but also importantly, we would like to have some level of decision-making control is maybe a word I would use. Over that, we've had a couple of requests made to the JPC for how things are to be dealt with, including our charges for our friends in DRPS. And we would like to find a better solution to that. And if we had a processing center where we were at least a part owner of. But this is step one, because as I said, we don't have any control over the resources provided to us, the JPs that are provided to us, and that is a problem we have to solve right away. It's a bit urgent, both for our police late charges and for the Vision Zero charges. Step two is, and we've talked with some of our neighbors about a joint processing center. So we've talked to Lindsay, Peterborough, and York all about, and all of them are in the same boat as us. They are all interested in expanding. And I think Toronto would be happy to have some other entities out there and not doing all the work, because I think
Oh, I think they enjoy it.
Well,
Don't get me wrong. I don't think I agree with you 100% there. When was the last time that the region engaged with the lower tiers, with either Ajax or Pickering, or maybe potential? I don't think Whitby has cameras at this point, but around this project in collaboration, because we have our own AMP system, and we launched it a year ago, maybe not quite a year ago, to process parking tickets. We are ready to launch ASE cameras tickets now. We are ready to go. There's a report coming in this month to do that right now. So, we didn't, as I understand it, we were talked to in 2023, but have had literally no communication since then on this. And please understand, I am a huge supporter of Vision Zero all the way, and the ASE cameras are amazing. But it has been a source of frustration in the town to understand how many tickets are coming out. We do get a report on each camera versus how much revenue we're receiving. So it has been a very frustrating process. So that was my last question about when was the last time you spoke to us?
Mr. Hunt?
2023 is probably correct in terms of formally. This is a topic that comes up probably about once every 3 or 4 months at a group that includes all of the city solicitors. So that would not include Ajax and the northern municipalities. So it's informally discussed there. There may have been some additional outreach undertaken by the project team that I'm not aware of. So I'll maybe ask Vera Oliveira if she can confirm. But 2023 sounds about right. We did a lot of work on project development up to 2023. Since that time, in most of 2024, we've really been focused on how we were going to solve the software solution, which was a bit of navel gazing, if I can use that word. It wasn't really something we were consulting outside. We would like to have local tier partners on board. We would welcome them to join the system, absolutely. And we have no issue with getting feedback from them on how it's to be designed, et cetera. But we were canvassing interest relatively regularly up till 2023, and then we started to focus on the nuts and bolts of the project development for about the last year. But if I can, I'll just ask Vera to correct me if there has been a more recent outreach. I do know it comes up when we had a conference with all of the by law enforcement officers maybe about 2 weeks ago. I suspect it was mentioned then as well, but I'll defer to Vera if there's been other conversations I'm not aware of.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can confirm that the last formal communication was in 2023. And informally, though, just as recent as 2 weeks ago at our local tier symposium, and 2024 was focused on the development of and doing the processing and configuration of the case management system that we hope to develop. Thank you.
So, and Mr. Kemp will know what I'm going to say. I believe that this should have been a regional program from the very beginning, with the lower tiers, everything under the same umbrella, because it is absolutely absurd that we have one at the region and then one in Pickering and one in Ajax with all of it. It should have all been covered under the regional's umbrella of Vision Zero. It is not. And so we have taken steps to make sure that our cameras are recording and are just staying where the revenue is going to come through Ajax, through our AMP system. So I do struggle with, I understand the reasoning for it and the rationale for it. I struggle with the unbudgeted 400,000.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. I had similar questions in terms of, I understand this is looking at it from the legal aspect. I remember a previous conversation with Commissioner Works, who's not present right now, in terms of our real limitations in terms of the amount of the AMP tickets that we give is really the amount of processing that the City of Toronto will provide us with. Have we looked into that at all?
That is correct. That right now is our main limitation. I would say, from month to month, that capacity competes with the capacity in the POA courts. But the processing center obviously comes first in the process. Like, that's step one. We can only send through so many charges through there. After they go to the JPC, they end up in the courts, where there's a second problem with the capacity in the courts. But the more acute problem is likely the JPC, although they have freed up some more capacity for us because there have been some participants who've left. So that'll be problem number 2 to solve.
So will that, through you, Mr. Chair, will that be a follow-up problem for us to look at is the JPC in terms of the Joint Processing Center and how many tickets can be processed? I'm not exactly sure how it would be chosen, which tickets would be processed through the JPC. Are they prioritized based on the size of the offense? I mean, a red light camera is a red light camera, but I mean, if it's a speed ticket, I mean, a 140 and a 50 is not the same as a 62 and a 50. So how are these captured through the JPC? If we don't have control of the JPC, we don't have control over the tickets that are being issued.
So that's an exercise that happens outside of my area. That's a Vision Zero exercise. I don't know how specifically they prioritize, and I don't know if they have had to yet. I know we're getting very close, and I know we've had conversations with Vision Zero about capacity in the courts, and I know that they've made decisions. I don't know what specifically those decisions are, but they've made their own decisions as to how they're going to control their capacity. So those decisions are made by Vision Zero. And we're probably, we probably got a runway in terms of a number of, months, maybe 12 to 18 months in terms of our capacity of the JPC. So we may not be facing any really hard decisions there about things that are having to be thrown out. But obviously we're designing a system. Like, we've made a decision about how many cameras we have. So that decision is based on projections for capacity at the JPC. With the cameras we have, we can then make decisions about how many charges we lay. I don't know how much we've been had to get into that in order to come within our capacity of the JPC. But again, I think we're sort of in that 12 to 18 month window before we're going to need to address the JPC as well. And that may change because Toronto is processing charges from throughout Ontario. So there are other groups which are having the exact same conversation and also pulling their charges out of the JPC. So our capacity sort of shrinks a bit, but it could also expand as other municipalities reach the same conclusions that we do.
So just through you, Mr. Chair, could that be a future, something that staff could come back to us with from, not through legal, but probably through works, in terms of the reporting capacity or ticketing capacity? And I'm not sure who that's for.
You can, I know you don't want to answer for works, but yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And then, sorry, actually to follow up, just to follow up, there is a possibility for the lower tiers to probably participate in this in the future.
Yes.
Okay, because I know in Scugog, we certainly don't have any speed cameras of our own as of right now, and I sure would like the ability eventually to be able to put them on provincial series highways as well, which I know that they will not allow, but run directly through our community, as do other municipalities have been looking at Whitby. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the speakers list. The motion is duly moved and seconded. Debate is concluded. I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. The next item is a report in regards to succession planning, and that's by the Commissioner Goodwin. Moved by Chair Henry, seconded by Councillor McDougall. Commissioner, do you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report, as it says, is our biannual succession planning and retirement forecast. I just wanted to read one section to the council. Succession management assists with business continuity, mitigates talent shortages, fosters employee engagement and retention, facilitates knowledge transfers, identifies critical roles, offers opportunity to assess the internal talent pipeline, and offers opportunity to foster and develop potential people leaders. So this is a report on what we've been doing and what we plan on doing. And one thing I would like to bring forward is that we do have a new pilot program for our directors, and that'll be initiated next year after we're finished the pilot. And we are also working on enhancing our succession planning and staff development planning as well. So that's the report.
Thank you. Councillor Leahy, questions on the report?
Yeah, thank you through the chair to staff. So appreciate that, and I appreciate all the effort, and I'd highlighting the areas where it's senior management saying it was around 89% are eligible for retirement. I guess, do we have a benchmark against what's that? Is that good, bad, or ugly? I guess that's it just based on your only knowledge and experiences, like, are we just at a real, this is a really, really risky situation, this is really bad, this is terrible, the sky's falling, or this is what happens all the times? Because you would expect the most senior leadership of your organization have the most experience and the most knowledge, and this is just the natural progression. So I'm just curious if you could answer that.
Commissioner? Through you, Mr. Chair. This is happening in the public sector. This has been coming for a long time. I think at this point, we're probably getting, in my opinion, getting near the peak of the large mass retirement. And we've been working on it for many years. Yes, the knowledge leaving the organizations within the public sector is massive during this period of time, probably the last 5 years, in the future 3 to 5 years. But we are working on making that better. We are expanding our talent pool. There's a lot of private sector employees coming into the public sector. So, I mean, we are working on it, but it is difficult with all of that knowledge leaving.
Yeah, and so it is a significant concern.
It is. We are addressing it, but it is throughout the public sector.
No, I appreciate that. So just wanted to clarify, so again, because that's your world and your perspective on that. So fully appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The motion is duly moved and seconded to receive for information. There's no further debate. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. We move on to finance. The first report is electric bus procurement and a budget, a request for an increase of $650,000. All right. Chair Henry has moved consent on the 3 finance reports, seconded by Councillor Leahy. Any polls? You have questions on all of them? So we'll go through them individually then. So it's moved by Chair Henry, second by Councillor Leahy, in regards to the 18 battery electric buses increase of a 650,000. It's pulled by Councillor Leahy, so you have the floor.
Yeah, no, and they're all really brief questions. We won't take long. On the first one, so again, we budgeted the 29 million for all the different buses. We're asking for another 6.5, another 2.2%. So I know the increased costs. We had this debate last time when it came up. Is there any chance that the cost could be even higher again, or are we really sure this time this is going to be the final cost?
Commissioner?
I'll have the General Manager of Transit respond as he deals directly with these issues with the vendor.
Mr. Holmes?
Thank you. And through the chair, as noted in the report, there was a change in the pricing of the vehicles late in the year last year. That's what contributes to this request. We don't foresee there will not be any additional charges. This is as per the contract with New Flyer. So at this point in time, with our contractual relationship with New Flyer, this would be the total cost for these vehicles.
Perfect. No, that's why this is the final. So, and I know it's changing environment and tariffs and all these things are unpredictable, but just hopefully we can lock it in this time and there's no more surprises. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further requests to speak. The debate's been concluded. The motion is duly moved and second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Next item, moved by Chair Henry, second by Councillor Leahy. Tariff Response Tourism Program funding. Councillor Leahy, you pulled.
Perfect. Thank you. Just really briefly, see the $250,000 request from the Economic Development Reserve Fund. My main question is, again, I'm also supporting business. We're all doing this. We're trying to get tourism and everything up to combat the concerns. How are we measuring success for this spend of the $250,000 in this program?
Commissioner?
So through the chair, Simon is online and prepared to answer questions. So we'll put that to you, Simon.
Perfect. Thanks.
Mr. Gill?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner. We also have Jackie Severs on the line, and I'm hoping to defer that question to her as she's putting the promotional campaign together right now.
Jackie, over to you.
Thank you. Through the chair, campaign measurement is possible through a number of ways. So one of the key things we'd be looking at is the breadth and the range of distribution for the guide. So the nice thing about something tangible like this, like a paper guide, is that we can actually measure its reach. So we would be looking at distribution increased. So in past years, we have distributed this guide to en routes and hotels and things like that. Our last distribution of this guide was quite successful. It was a redesigned guide, and we ran out of what was expected to be a 2-year supply within the first year because essentially so many people picked it up and we weren't able to fulfill those distribution channels. So an enhanced budget would increase the distribution. It would allow us to have a larger supply to make sure that that distribution to places like hotels and airports is increased and done over a 2-year period. And we'd also be able to distribute it direct to homes. So that might be within newspaper or magazine subscribers direct to people's homes. And so the increased budget just in pure numbers increases the distribution of the guide, so that increases reach. We would also be able to measure through things like increased online traffic. So when people receive the guide and they're informed that they can go to our website for more information, they can be measured when they land on our website. So we can look at it through that. We can also look at it through some of the data that we do collect digitally in our community related to our downtown. So we are tracking visitation to our downtowns on a year-over-year basis using cell phone data, and we can look at that and measure that over time. That is something that we have been doing since 2019 and can look at it year-over-year about the 14 downtowns in our communities, because that's a strategic area of recovery that we're continuing to work on and trying to get all of our downtown communities to see visitor traffic at the level of 2019 or above, ideally considerably above. So those would be some areas that we'd be able to measure the success. We also hear a lot of anecdotal feedback and conversation from our stakeholders, the tourism businesses themselves, and that is, collected through business visits or other methods. So we'd be able to hear those anecdotal pieces as well about specific businesses.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Joe. So I just hope that we measure that, and as we move forward, we can actually share those measurements, because there's, in 2025, there's so many ways that we can measure that investment so that we can truly prove that this investment is worthwhile through a data-driven decisions. Like, the other thing I would encourage you to do is that when you're putting your printed copy together, you'd use trackable QR codes and other different things, because you're going to get a better way. Are they actually being scanned? Are they being used? Because if you're just using website traffic, you don't necessarily know where it's coming from. But if you have QR codes in your ads and people actually scan it, there is just verifiable data. Yes, people were coming from this printed thing to our digital online, and we have a trackable blueprint. So I just hope that we can see more of that data, so that as we open up our reserves or other different money and invest in these things, there's a measurable return, because it is measurable. So I appreciate that we're looking at it. I just hope that we can see that that incremental change year over year to basically prove the value of the taxpayer investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no further requests to speak. As such, we concluded debate. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. The last item under finance is the deferral of the indexing of the regional development charges until later in the year. It's moved by Chair Henry, second by Councillor Leahy. Councillor Leahy, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. So I appreciate these particular concerns and deferring the revenue. I guess the thing is, deferring the revenue is, are we not foregoing that? I know we talk about it in the report, and we know it's the 2.x number $1 million as for not doing the increase, but can we not have the increase and just defer payment, like to occupancy and the other different things? Like, there's all these other, I know the legislation is constantly changing, and I appreciate your ability to dance with all these changes, but are we not potentially foregoing revenue that way? Can we not just say, no, the charges are going up, but you can pay them later, so then that can be part of their business case?
Commissioner?
So if I may, through the chair, there's a couple of things I would say to that. The province certainly has some very aggressive initiatives with respect to development charges, and we have had some very good discussions with Build and local home builders over the last number of months. To some degree, this is a bit of a sign of good faith that we are wanting to work with the province to influence what will be coming over the summer, to assess sort of the best case scenario for the region. So that's part of this, is in the midst of all this debate about development charges being so high, and then we just drop another increase on top of that. As I say, we're trying to create some goodwill that we are trying to partner. The other thing I'll suggest to you is the numbers are incredibly flat right now. So the estimate of 2.8 million was based on this 10-year average. Well, this year there is nothing happening. So there is no lost revenue.
Fair enough.
The whole goal would be that this would trigger activity, right? So at this point, that estimate, I say, is based on what we do, which is a 10-year average. But this year there is the dollar value impact of this would be much, much less. And then the third thing that I think is critical both for the local and the region is deferrals present their own challenges, and particularly with respect to tracking. So when you're talking about regular single-family residential, the tracking obligations to occupancy are going to be a nightmare if it proceeds that way. So our recommendation, you'll see on the report tomorrow for Bill 17, is that the deferrals be for, if possible, everything but single family, because what we're trying to do is help promote affordable housing. So we would like the deferrals to be customized to the kinds of housing that we really need to see occur. So there's a lot of, but the tracking to occupancy of all of the things that go on, and you can envision where it's not just one person that's building a house that's coming in, you're talking about the entire development community and all the ripple effects of trying to track that. It's already very, very challenging between the locals and the region with all of that. So my goal is to try to avoid deferrals to occupancy for all residential. That being said, I'll be at the mercy of what council chooses to do and what the province chooses to do. So our goal here was to just buy some time so that we're not putting an increase in, and show a sign of good faith that we are interested in trying to find some resolve to the issue, and then see what happens over the summer with the consultation that's taking place on the regulations for Bill 17, and then come back in the fall to say, okay, here's now the scenario we're faced with. This is the changes that we're going to have to make to accommodate whatever the final outcome will be of the regulations that'll be forthcoming and the last pieces of Bill 17.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate all those things. I just wonder if October 1st is even enough, because we literally will have to make another decision on this the next time we meet in September, because it'll be a few weeks before October 1st.
So through the chair, we selected October 1st mostly because this report was drafted before Bill 17.
Right.
And
okay.
so we had to try to figure out a mechanism to legally do it. And so we would have had to try to essentially bring something in September to sort it all out.
Okay.
So October 1st was kind of our buy us the time to get some way of dealing with it. And of course, as we were writing all of this, we had two versions. And so Bill 17 is now into play. And so we just stayed with that October 1st date. If things do start to move, then the dollar implications that you referred to earlier would start to add up. So it's really to see if we can, from our perspective, it's to see if we can see some things happening over these summer months and then assess what we are going to perhaps be forced to put into place in the fall and what this committee might deem as additional items they would like to see at the same time.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate all that. I guess that the fear, of course, for me is that if they're not buying it today at the current rates, promising them we're not going to increase them is probably not enough of an incentive for a deluge of applications. I'm hopeful, because we're hopeful in Whitby as well. So, no, I appreciate that. I just wanted to have that context, understand it, because we're going to have to address it in September at the next meeting anyways, either way, even if there's an extension.
And through the chair, I am not fussed if you want to, to go to November 1st to give us the month of October as well. It's not going to have a dramatic bearing because it will take time for it to gear up. As I say, we picked that date because of Bill 17 not being in play, and how could we at least try to put this off, the statutory increase off. If you wanted to give another month so that there's flexibility in the fall between reporting in September and reporting in October, that would be fine as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I'll definitely put that amendment to adjust the date to November 1st.
Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell me something? When we defer DCs like this, or the potential of deferring DCs, do we have to fill the hole? And does that go on the backs of the taxpayer?
So through the chair, depending on the nature of what is addressed, in some cases, yes. The deferral of an increase, we won't have to make up that shortfall.
Right.
If you said the flip side, well, we're going to take today's charge and we're going to knock 25% off of that, then you do have to make a decision around how you're going to fund it, because the DC value is based on cost recovery.
So what we're doing essentially to get buildings housing is still punishing the taxpayer.
The next sequence of things that are coming out of Bill 17, that is going to be the issue, and arguably the issue around municipal services corps for utilities. There's a lot of things that are going to require some heavy thought around this committee on those issues.
And are we going to be making that public around what Bill 17 means?
There's a report tomorrow on committee of the whole.
Sorry. Haven't got that far on my agendas yet.
That speaks to the region's response.
Okay, good. All right, sorry. I'll read that and I'll ask my questions then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just at one point, the savings is about $2,800 per unit, which goes right to the I guess, the affordability issue. So I don't know that. I don't know if the house gets reduced by $2,800 or as an incentive, or does the developer pocket it? I don't know the answer, but the reality is the deferral is saving the cost of a house of $2,800. So, okay, that concludes my list, and therefore concludes the debate. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Yeah, well, an amendment would be in order. So you want to amend section A to read defer until November 1st. Do I have a seconder? So it's moved by Councillor Leahy and seconded by Councillor Crawford that the staff report be amended to reflect the deferral from July 1st, 2025 until November 1st, 2025. Debate. Being done, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That item's carried. I'm going to do the main motion then. Main motion has been duly moved and seconded and amended. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Next item is a confidential report in regards to acquisition of property. It's moved by Chair Henry and seconded by Councillor McDougall. Is there a requirement to go in camera? Yes? You want to go in camera? We need a motion to go in camera? Yeah. Motion to go in camera moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Leahy. Please be advised the committee will now meet in closed session in accordance with the subsection 2392 of the Municipal Act. Proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. I will verbally report out in general sense all items considered in the closed session once we rise from the closed session and move back into open session. So we will recess for a few minutes until we can make these arrangements. Committee met in closed session to consider matters that is permitted under the Municipal Act and is listed on today's agenda. The following items were considered during the closed session. Report 2525F12 regarding proposed acquisition of property in the city of Pickering for the Durham Regional Police Services. In the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I am reporting in public session any outcome from today's closed session. As a result of the closed session today, I wish to report that no motions were considered and no motions were approved. We're back in session. We do have a motion duly moved and seconded. What did I say? Oh, my apologies. I said, it's when it says city of, I just assume it's Pickering. There was a report in regards to property in the city of Oshawa for use for the Durham Regional Police. The confidential report was moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. Any other business? Date of the next meeting is Tuesday, September the 9th at 9:30. Just a reminder, tomorrow we are meeting at 9 a.m. For transit. And motion to adjourn to be in order. Moved by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor McDougall. All those in favor? Opposed? That item is carried. We are adjourned.